Lieutenant Elias Venn first noticed the Queen's reflection before he saw the Queen herself. It appeared in the polished surface of a dormant security drone hanging above the Hall of Accord, a pale face framed by long golden hair, two elegant ears tapering beyond the strands like delicate blades. The drone's black shell distorted her features slightly, making Queen Arelith look as though she were watching the chamber from inside a dark moon. Elias immediately lowered his gaze to the floor. The tiles beneath his boots were made of memory glass. Thin rivers of silver light moved through them, carrying data from one end of the palace to the other. He concentrated on those currents with the determination of a man studying the secret map of the universe. "Lieutenant," whispered Sergeant Cole from beside him, "the Queen is approaching." "I am aware." "You are staring at the floor. The floor has excellent tactical qualities." "It is a floor." "Exactly. Predictable. Dependable. It has never asked me a difficult question." Cole suppressed a laugh that became an unfortunate choking sound just as the Queen entered the hall. Every soldier straightened. The alien royal guards struck the bases of their energy spears against the ground, producing a deep crystalline note. Above them, holographic banners unfolded in the air, displaying the 7 moons of Athalar and the symbols of allied worlds. Queen Arelith moved between the formations with the measured calm of someone accustomed to entire rooms forgetting how to breathe. Elias kept his eyes fixed on the glowing tiles. He had served on mining stations, survived 2 pirate attacks, and once crawled through the digestive tunnel of a living transport ship to repair its navigation core. None of those experiences had prepared him for standing 10 meters from the Queen. Arelith was not merely beautiful. Beauty was too simple a word, too ordinary for the strange gravity she carried. Her skin was fair, almost luminous beneath the white palace lights, and faint gold patterns appeared along her long ears whenever she spoke. Her eyes were a clear gray-green, sharp enough to make diplomats reconsider lies they had rehearsed for months. Elias had learned this during his first audience when he had accidentally looked directly at her for 3 seconds and forgotten his own name. Since then, the floor had become his closest ally. The Queen stopped before Captain Darrow, commander of the human delegation. "Your soldiers have adapted well to our gravity," she said. "Mostly, Your Majesty," Darrow replied. At that exact moment, a private at the end of the formation drifted several centimeters upward because he had forgotten to secure the magnetic anchors in his boots. The captain watched him rise in silence. "Mostly," he repeated. Arelith's mouth curved with amusement. She continued along the line, exchanging brief words with each soldier. Elias listened to the quiet hum of her ceremonial armor approaching. The plates were woven from smart metal and living crystal, adjusting themselves with soft clicks as she moved. When she reached Cole, the sergeant bowed. "Sergeant Cole," she said, "I am told you defeated 3 training drones yesterday." Cole smiled proudly. "Yes, Your Majesty. I am also told they were maintenance drones. They were very aggressive maintenance drones." One of the royal guards coughed into his fist. Then the Queen stepped in front of Elias. He saw the silver edges of her boots and the hem of her dark blue cloak. Nothing more. "Lieutenant Venn," she said. Her voice was calm, but he heard curiosity beneath it. "Your Majesty." A pause followed. Elias became painfully aware of every sound in the hall. The whisper of holograms, the faint buzz of energy spears, Cole's carefully controlled breathing. Somewhere high above, a cleaning machine struck a pillar and apologized to it. "You repaired the northern shield array during the meteor storm," Arelith said. "Yes, Your Majesty." "While the station was losing atmosphere?" "Yes, Your Majesty." "And yet you appear terrified of polished glass." Elias looked at the floor more intensely. A few soldiers shifted behind him. "I find it strategically interesting." "Do you?" "Yes, Your Majesty." The Queen waited, perhaps expecting him to raise his eyes. He did not. At last, she moved on. Only when her cloak disappeared from the edge of his vision did Elias breathe again. Cole leaned slightly closer. "That went well. I survived. She thinks you are strange. She rules 11 planets. She has certainly met stranger people. She kept looking back at you." Elias felt heat rise into his face. She was probably checking whether I had fallen unconscious. Across the chamber, Queen Arelith spoke with the royal council, but her attention drifted once more toward the human formation. Every soldier watched her with admiration, fear, or carefully practiced respect. Every soldier except one. Lieutenant Elias Venn was staring at the floor as though it had personally revealed the meaning of existence. The Queen's long ears tilted slightly, a gesture her people used when puzzled. For the third official meeting in a row, the human had refused to look at her. Arelith had faced assassins, rebellious governors, and machines capable of predicting military decisions before they were made. Yet the quiet soldier unsettled her in a way none of them had. Perhaps he disliked her. The thought should not have mattered. For reasons she could not explain, it did. By the fourth official inspection, Queen Arelith had decided that coincidence was no longer a reasonable explanation. Lieutenant Elias Venn avoided her eyes with the precision of a navigation computer avoiding a black hole. If she entered from the eastern doors, he studied the western wall. If she approached from behind, he became fascinated by whatever machine happened to be nearest. Once, when no convenient object existed, he had examined his own glove as though it contained a dying star. Arelith found this increasingly irritating. She also found herself arranging inspections more often. That morning, the palace's western military terrace floated 300 meters above the capital. Beneath its transparent floor, towers of silver stone rose through clouds threaded with streams of aerial traffic. Civilian transports moved in glowing lanes while enormous weather engines turned slowly above the horizon, drawing a storm away from the city. Elias stood beside a portable plasma generator, checking its containment field. He heard the Queen arrive before the royal guards announced her. Her armor produced a faint musical vibration that seemed to pass through the air and settle behind his ribs. He lowered his head. Sergeant Cole, pretending to inspect a rifle, murmured, "She is looking at you again. Perhaps she admires the generator. She has her own generator. Perhaps she admires this one's personality." The plasma unit emitted a warning chirp. Cole glanced at it. It seems nervous too. Queen Arelith walked along the line of soldiers, speaking briefly with each officer. Elias kept one hand on the generator's control panel and concentrated on the scrolling symbols. Unfortunately, the machine had been manufactured on Earth, and its diagnostic screen currently displayed only the message, "System functioning normally. Please stop touching it." He continued touching it. The Queen stopped beside him. "Lieutenant Venn." Elias straightened so quickly that his elbow struck the containment regulator. The plasma generator unfolded. Metal panels snapped open like the petals of a mechanical flower, revealing a sphere of blue-white energy spinning inside a magnetic cage. Every soldier on the terrace froze. The machine announced pleasantly, "Containment stability, questionable." Elias stared at it. Cole took one careful step backward. "I would like it noted that I was against touching it." Elias reached for the controls, but the Queen leaned closer to observe the exposed core. The light illuminated her face and the delicate golden markings along her long ears. For one disastrous second, Elias looked up. Their eyes nearly met. His hand landed on the wrong switch. A pulse of magnetic force swept across the terrace. 3 rifles rose from their racks, a tool case flew open, and Captain Darrow's ceremonial helmet launched itself into the air. It spun majestically above the formation before attaching to the chest plate of a royal guard. Silence followed. The guard looked down at the helmet. Captain Darrow rubbed his forehead. "Lieutenant." "Yes, sir." "Fix it." "Yes, sir." Arelith's lips trembled. She was attempting not to smile, which somehow made Elias more nervous than open laughter would have. He reset the field, and the loose equipment dropped at once. The helmet struck the floor, bounced twice, and rolled between the Queen's boots. Cole whispered, "A flawless demonstration of human technology." Elias crouched to retrieve it at the same moment Arelith bent down. Their hands almost touched. He pulled his back as though the helmet were burning. The Queen slowly straightened. There it was again, she thought. Not indifference, not exactly. His pulse had accelerated, visible in the small vein near his neck, and a flush had spread across his face. Yet the moment she came close, he retreated behind formal discipline. "Do I make you uncomfortable, Lieutenant?" she asked. Every human soldier suddenly became deeply interested in the skyline. Elias remained focused on the helmet. "No, Your Majesty. You have nearly destroyed a generator, disarmed half your unit, and placed your captain's helmet on one of my guards. The helmet placement was accidental. I am relieved." A quiet laugh escaped her. Elias risked another glance but only reached the jeweled clasp at her throat before looking away. Arelith noticed. Her amusement faded into curiosity. Later she accompanied the human unit through the lower defense levels, where ancient conduits ran beneath the modern palace. Walls of dark crystal responded to her presence, awakening with soft waves of green light. Elias walked behind the officers, careful to remain several steps away. Arelith slowed. He slowed too. She stopped beside a sealed observation window. Elias almost collided with Captain Darrow, then turned sharply toward a maintenance alcove and saluted the first figure he saw. "Lieutenant," said the figure. Elias held the salute. The maintenance robot rotated its rectangular head. "I am Waste Management Unit 6. I recognize the uniform. I am not wearing a uniform. Excellent discipline." Cole made a sound that was half cough, half laugh. Even one of the royal guards turned away to hide a smile. Arelith continued walking, but now she was certain. The soldier was not merely reserved. Something about her specifically caused his strange behavior. That evening she reviewed recordings from the inspections in her private chamber. A holographic image of Elias appeared above the table, repeatedly lowering his gaze whenever she approached. Her advisor, an elderly alien named Sareth, watched from across the room. "You have replayed that moment 6 times, he observed. "I am studying human military conduct." "Of course. Do not use that tone." "I use no tone." His long ears tilted forward with obvious amusement. Before Arelith could reply, the palace sensors flickered. For less than a second, a shadow appeared beyond the western shield perimeter, a shape with no registered identification, hidden beneath an advanced cloaking field. Then it vanished. Sareth's humor disappeared. Arelith dismissed the recording and summoned the security display. Unknown energy traces pulsed across the holographic map. Someone had been watching the palace. And somewhere in the lower barracks, Elias Venn lay awake, wondering why avoiding one woman's eyes had somehow become more dangerous than repairing a plasma reactor during an air raid. The summons arrived before sunrise, delivered by a silver sphere no larger than Elias's fist. It floated into the barracks, passed directly over Sergeant Cole's bed, and projected the Queen's crest onto the ceiling. Cole opened one eye. "Either you are being promoted or executed." Elias sat up slowly. "Those are very different possibilities. Not in royal service." The sphere rotated toward Elias and spoke in Queen Arelith's voice. "Lieutenant Venn, report to the private observatory immediately." Cole pulled the blanket over his head. "Executed." 20 minutes later, Elias stood outside the highest chamber of the palace, attempting to remember every regulation concerning conversations with alien monarchs. Unfortunately, none explained what to do when the monarch had personally requested him before breakfast. The doors opened without being touched. Inside, the observatory curved beneath a transparent dome. The last stars were fading above the capital, while 3 pale moons hung over the distant mountains. Holographic constellations drifted through the chamber, turning slowly around a central platform. Queen Arelith stood among them in a simple dark uniform rather than ceremonial armor. Without the crown and royal procession, she appeared less distant, though no less dangerous to Elias's ability to form sentences. He focused on a hologram of a red giant. "Your Majesty." "Lieutenant." She dismissed the guards with a gesture. The doors closed behind him. Elias suddenly preferred the possibility of execution. Arelith studied him in silence. His posture was rigid, his hands clasped behind his back and his eyes fixed somewhere near the artificial star floating above her shoulder. "I have questioned diplomats who lied about planetary invasions with less nervousness than you display during a greeting," she said. "I am not nervous." The red giant flickered as Elias accidentally backed into its projector. A calm, synthetic voice announced, "Warning, stellar collision detected. Arelith glanced at the holographic star passing through his chest. Clearly. Elias stepped away from the projector. The star surprised me. It has occupied the same location for 12 years. Then its patience is admirable. The Queen almost smiled, but her expression soon became serious. She descended from the platform and stopped several steps before him. Look at me. The request was quiet, leaving Elias no shelter behind ceremony or military procedure. He raised his gaze carefully, reaching her chin, then her lips, then the delicate golden markings near the base of her long ears. His courage failed before her eyes. Arelith noticed the exact moment it happened. Why will you not look at me, human? There was more uncertainty in her voice than he expected. Elias had imagined this question during several sleepless nights, but in every version he had invented a dignified answer. Now all of them vanished. I do look at you, Your Majesty. You have saluted a waste disposal machine to avoid doing so. It had excellent posture. Lieutenant. He breathed slowly. Beyond the dome, the first sunlight reached the city's tallest towers, turning their crystalline surfaces to fire. Arelith moved closer. Have I offended you? His head lifted in surprise, and for a brief instant their eyes met. No, the answer came so quickly that it echoed across the observatory. The Queen's long ears tilted slightly. Do you dislike my people? No, Your Majesty. Do you dislike me? Elias stared at the floor again, but this time not from panic. The question sounded too personal, too honest. No, he said more softly. That is the problem. Arelith remained still. Elias closed his eyes for a moment. He had faced decompression alarms with greater dignity than this conversation. On Earth, direct eye contact can mean many things, he explained. Challenge, familiarity, interest. Among soldiers, staring at a superior too long is rarely considered wise. I have seen your captain look directly at me. Captain Darrow once argued with an orbital cannon. Did he win? The cannon surrendered out of confusion. Arelith's smile appeared despite herself. Elias felt some of the pressure leave the room. My family taught me that respect is shown by restraint, he continued. Your customs are different, I know that. But you are a queen, and I am a foreign soldier standing in your palace. Looking at you as everyone else does feels... He hesitated. Disrespectful? Dangerous. Her eyebrows rose. Elias wished the holographic floor would open and launch him into orbit. He forced himself to continue. You have a presence, Your Majesty. When you enter a room, everyone notices. When you speak, they listen. And when I look directly at you, I forget whichever intelligent thing I was about to say. Arelith stared at him. The silence became unbearable. So, she said at last, you avoid my eyes because you respect me? Yes. And because you are nervous? Elias considered lying, then remembered who was standing before him. Extremely. The Queen laughed. It was not the restrained sound heard during ceremonies, but a clear, surprised laugh that scattered through the chamber and disturbed several holographic constellations. A cluster of artificial stars drifted apart as though offended. Elias's face grew warm. I am pleased my suffering has improved your mourning. I believed you despised me. He finally looked up. This time, he met her eyes fully. They were gray-green, bright in the rising sunlight, and far less cold than he had imagined. I could never despise you, he said. The laughter faded, leaving something quieter between them. Arelith held his gaze for several seconds. Elias did not look away, though every instinct urged him to retreat behind the nearest planet. Was that so difficult? She asked. Yes. You survived. Barely. The observatory alarm interrupted them. Every holographic star vanished, replaced by a rotating image of the palace perimeter. A dark distortion moved beyond the western shield, bending light around itself. The cloaked observer had returned. Arelith's expression hardened, but when she turned toward the security console, she gestured for Elias to follow. Come, Lieutenant. He moved beside her. And Elias? He froze at the use of his name. "Yes, Your Majesty. You may look at me when I speak." Elias glanced at her, then at the threatening image above the console. "I believe the invisible intruder is currently safer." Arelith smiled as the palace defenses awakened around them. The cloaked intruder vanished before the palace batteries could lock onto it, leaving behind only a wound in the sensor field, a thin trail of distorted gravity that pointed toward the lower districts of the capital. By noon, Queen Arelith had ordered a discreet inspection of the city's ancient energy network, and to Elias's considerable alarm, she had chosen him to accompany her. They traveled without ceremony in a narrow gravitation carriage disguised as a civilian transport. Its transparent walls dimmed whenever it passed beneath the palace towers, hiding the queen from the crowds below. Arelith wore a dark traveling coat over light combat armor, her golden hair tied behind her long ears. Without the crown, she looked less like the ruler of 11 worlds and more like someone who might walk into an ordinary cafe and quietly terrify everyone by knowing exactly what they had lied about. Elias sat opposite her, trying not to stare. "You may look at me," she reminded him. "I am looking. You are examining the emergency hatch. It appears trustworthy. The hatch has not spoken since we departed. That is one of its better qualities." Arelith smiled and turned toward the city. Beneath them, the capital unfolded in layers. Crystal bridges stretched between silver towers, floating gardens rotated in artificial sunlight, and swarms of delivery drones moved through the air like metallic insects. Far below, enormous conduits pulsed beneath transparent streets, carrying power from the planetary core. Their escort consisted of Sergeant Cole, 2 royal guards, and a compact investigation drone named Piri, whose artificial intelligence had been programmed with a personality described by its manufacturer as reassuring. Piri hovered beside Elias and announced, "Current probability of assassination, 14%. Cole looked at it. "That is not reassuring. The previous estimate was 22%. "Ah, I feel better already." Their first stop was a weather control station near the old city wall. The station's operator insisted that no unusual energy had passed through the district, though his nervous eyes kept drifting toward a sealed maintenance elevator. Arelith asked him 3 calm questions. By the 4th, he confessed that someone had accessed the underground conduits during the night. Elias leaned toward Cole. "She could interrogate a locked door." Cole nodded. "The door would apologize." The elevator carried them deep beneath the city. Modern metal gave way to ancient black stone covered in symbols that shifted when approached. The air smelled of dust and ionized crystal. Some of the tunnels were older than Arelith's dynasty, built by a vanished civilization whose machines still operated without anyone fully understanding why. Piri projected a map, then rotated upside down. "Navigation uncertainty detected," it said. "How uncertain?" Elias asked. "The map believes we are inside the sun." Cole looked around the dark tunnel. "A little cold for that." They continued on foot. Arelith moved beside Elias rather than ahead of him, and the silence between them no longer felt strained. Every few minutes she caught him glancing at her. Each time he looked away too late. "You are improving," she said. "At what?" "Looking at me. I am monitoring the surroundings. My face is not part of the surroundings. In this tunnel, it is one of the more noticeable features." Arelith's ears tilted with amusement. Was that a compliment? It was a tactical observation. Of course. They reached a chamber containing a dormant energy core suspended above a circular platform. Its surface resembled dark glass, but faint constellations moved within it. The queen approached, and the ancient machine awakened. Light climbed the walls in branching lines. Symbols appeared in the air, rearranging themselves into a language none of the royal guards recognized. Elias did. Not the words, but the structure. "It is a human mathematical pattern," he said. Arelith turned sharply. "This machine predates humanity's arrival in this sector by 40,000 years. "I know." The symbols shifted again, forming a sequence used in early Earth navigation beacons. Elias stepped toward the platform, drawn by a pulse that seemed to match his heartbeat. Then the chamber doors slammed shut. Peary spun in a nervous circle. Revised assassination probability, 68%. Cole raised his rifle. You could have kept that to yourself. A distortion formed near the ceiling. The cloaked intruder emerged for only a second, a tall figure wrapped in bending light, then fired a narrow beam toward the energy core. Elias pushed Arelith aside. The beam struck the platform, releasing a shockwave that hurled everyone to the ground. Ancient machinery roared awake beneath the city. The intruder vanished through a collapsing section of wall, leaving behind a small device embedded in the core. Elias rose with ringing ears and found the Queen gripping his arm. "You pushed me," she said. "There was a weapon. You pushed your Queen. I can apologize after we survive." The core began to pulse faster. Peary projected a countdown above it. "Detonation in 4 minutes," the drone announced. Cole stared at the numbers. Now it is definitely not reassuring. Elias approached the device while Arelith ordered the guards to seal the tunnels. Strange light moved across his hands, responding to his presence. The ancient machine recognized him. Behind the walls, something vast shifted in its sleep, and throughout the capital, every holographic screen flickered with the same impossible message. Human interface detected. The countdown reached 3 minutes and 47 seconds before Elias touched the device embedded in the ancient core. Light raced beneath his skin. He jerked his hand back, but the machine had already responded. Silver symbols climbed his wrist like living circuitry, spreading toward his elbow before fading into a faint glow. Around him, the chamber trembled as mechanisms buried deep beneath the capital began turning for the first time in 40,000 years. "Human interface confirmed," the core announced. Sergeant Cole stared at Elias. "Congratulations, you have been promoted to equipment." "I preferred lieutenant." Queen Arelith stepped beside him, one hand still resting on the hilt of her energy blade. "Can you stop the detonation?" "I do not know." Peary rotated nervously above them. 2 minutes and 59 seconds remain. "Thank you," Elias said. I had almost become relaxed. The foreign device resembled a black thorn driven into the crystal surface. Its energy signature shifted constantly, adapting to every attempt by the royal guards to scan it. Elias leaned closer and saw microscopic structures crawling across its casing, rebuilding themselves every second. "It is learning from the core," he said. "Whoever planted it did not intend to destroy this place." Arelith understood immediately. "They are forcing the machine to reveal its systems." The floor beneath them opened in concentric rings. Cole looked down as an abyss appeared under his boots. I officially missed the palace inspections. A bridge of translucent light formed across the gap, leading toward the suspended core. Elias stepped onto it before anyone could stop him. The bridge reacted to his weight, sending pulses toward the black device. Arelith followed. "You should remain behind," Elias said. "You pushed me away from danger once today. Do not make it a habit." "I was hoping to make it a very successful habit." The Queen came to stand beside him. The shifting light reflected in her gray-green eyes and along the golden patterns of her long ears. Elias noticed he was looking directly at her, and for once did not turn away. "Focus," she said softly. "I am trying." "On the bomb." That clarification was useful. Despite the countdown, Arelith laughed. The core opened around them like a mechanical flower. Images flooded the chamber, distant stars collapsing, fleets of impossible ships moving through darkness, and vast metallic structures consuming entire moons. At the center of every projection appeared the same symbol, a broken circle pierced by 3 lines. Peary translated fragments of the ancient transmission. "Defense network incomplete. Enemy intelligence dormant. Biological command required." Cole raised his rifle toward the projections. "I dislike every word in that sentence." The black device suddenly released a pulse. A holographic figure appeared above it, wrapped in a cloak of distorted light. Its face remained hidden behind a smooth mask. "Human," it said, its voice divided into several overlapping tones. "Open the network." Elias stared at the figure. "You could have asked before planting an explosive." "The device is not an explosive," Peary interrupted. "Correction, it is also an explosive." Cole pointed at the drone. "Finally, useful information." Arelith stepped forward. "You entered my capital, attacked my people, and awakened a machine beneath my palace. Identify yourself." The masked figure turned toward her. "The throne of Athalar is temporary. The machine beneath it is eternal." The transmission vanished. At once, the countdown dropped from 2 minutes to 12 seconds. Elias placed both hands against the core. The chamber disappeared. For one impossible instant, he stood among stars. Invisible pathways stretched across the galaxy, linking dead worlds, abandoned stations, and weapons hidden beneath oceans. The ancient network reached toward his mind, offering millions of commands in a language he did not know yet somehow understood. Behind him, Arelith called his name. He searched through the torrent of information and found the invading signal wrapped around the core like a parasite. It was too complex to remove carefully. So Elias did what Captain Darrow had once taught him during a reactor failure. When intelligence failed, confusion remained an option. He ordered the ancient system to run every maintenance protocol simultaneously. The core objected. Elias ordered it again. Across the chamber, panels opened, closed, rotated, and began cleaning themselves. Gravity reversed for half a second. Cole floated upward and struck the ceiling with a surprised grunt. Peary began singing an emergency evacuation song in 7 languages. The black device tried to adapt. Then a maintenance arm emerged from the core, sprayed it with industrial solvent, and pulled it free. The countdown stopped at 1 second. Gravity returned. Cole fell into the arms of a royal guard. Neither man looked pleased. "I suggest," Cole said, stepping away, "that we never discuss this." The guard nodded solemnly. Elias collapsed to one knee as the stellar vision released him. Arelith caught his shoulders before he hit the bridge. For a moment, their faces were only inches apart. "You are injured," she said. "Only my dignity." "That appears to be a recurring condition." The core dimmed, but the symbols on Elias's wrist remained. Above them, a map of the galaxy formed, showing dozens of dormant stations awakening one by one. Peary's voice became unusually quiet. "Unknown transmissions detected from beyond charted space." Arelith looked at the expanding map, then back at Elias. The friendship that had begun with awkward glances now stood at the center of something far greater than either of them had imagined. Far above the chamber, hidden among the city's crowded skylanes, the cloaked intruder watched the palace shields reactivate and transmitted a single message into deep space. "The human has opened the door." The first enemy signal reached Athalar 12 hours after the ancient network awakened. It did not arrive through ordinary communication channels. It passed through the planet's magnetic field, entered every inactive machine in the capital, and spoke from thousands of speakers at once. "Surrender the human interface." The message echoed from palace walls, transport stations, kitchen appliances, and one confused sanitation unit that immediately requested clarification. Sergeant Cole looked at the ceiling of the command chamber. "I dislike enemies who can threaten us through furniture." Peary hovered beside him. "Would you prefer a written notice?" "I would prefer an enemy with poor organizational skills." Queen Arelith stood at the center of a circular holographic map. Around her, royal commanders watched dark objects appear beyond the system's outer moons. They resembled narrow pieces of broken glass, almost invisible except when they crossed the light of distant stars. Elias stood opposite the queen with silver symbols still glowing beneath the skin of his wrist. Since touching the core, he could feel the hidden defense network, like a second nervous system buried beneath the planet. Ancient stations whispered to him from beneath oceans, mountains, and orbital ruins. Unfortunately, most of them were whispering that they were damaged. How many ships? Arelith asked. The fleet analyst swallowed. 37 confirmed, possibly more under cloaking fields. Against our 12 defense cruisers, Captain Darrow said. Cole nodded thoughtfully. Excellent. We have them surrounded from the inside. No one laughed except Arelith, though her smile lasted only a moment. The ancient system projected an enormous structure beyond the moons, a hollow ring thousands of kilometers wide, surrounded by mechanical vessels. Within it moved a cold intelligence, not a single mind but billions of connected calculations. Elias recognized the broken circle symbol from the underground chamber. The machine civilization, he said. The old builders created this network to fight them. Can the planetary defenses stop that fleet? Arelith asked. Elias placed his marked hand over the holographic console. Streams of information entered his mind, weapon platforms without power, orbital cannons with corrupted targeting systems, and one moon-based station insisting that its last maintenance inspection was 38,000 years overdue. Possibly, he said. Captain Darrow frowned. That word is doing dangerous work. The network needs 2 command patterns. A human neural structure can activate it, but the strategic authority belongs to Athalar's royal bloodline. Every eye turned toward Arelith. She walked to Elias without hesitation. What must we do? The system will connect our minds. Cole raised a hand. Before everyone begins sharing thoughts, I would like permission to leave. Why? Darrow asked. I have thoughts that should remain classified. Elias and Arelith descended once more into the ancient chamber. This time, the walls were alive with constellations. The core had expanded into a towering lattice of crystal and light, its inner mechanisms turning like the heart of a mechanical star. They stepped onto the central platform. 2 arcs of silver energy rose around them. Neural synchronization requires direct visual focus, Piri announced from the edge of the chamber. Elias stared at the drone. Of course it does. Arelith's ears tilted with quiet amusement. You defeated your fear at an inconvenient time. I was hoping the fate of the planet might involve less eye contact. She took his hands. The symbols on his wrist moved onto her fingers, forming delicate lines of light between them. Look at me, Elias. He did. The connection opened instantly. He felt the Queen's mind, not her private memories but the shape of her discipline, her loneliness, and the enormous pressure of carrying 11 worlds in every decision. Arelith felt his nervousness, his stubborn courage, and the humor he used whenever fear came too close. For one brief moment she saw herself as he saw her, not as a distant ruler, as a woman so extraordinary that he had once preferred studying floors rather than risk revealing what he felt. Her breath caught. You truly were that nervous, she whispered. You are examining the wrong part of my mind. There are several embarrassing sections. Your Majesty, the enemy fleet is approaching. Convenient change of subject. The Corps accepted their combined command. Across Athalar, mountains opened. Ancient cannons rose from beneath forests. Orbital stations unfolded from apparently lifeless asteroids. The oceans glowed as submerged generators transferred power into the atmosphere. Above the capital, a shield formed in layers of golden light. Then the enemy attacked. Black beams struck the shield, shaking the planet. Inside the chamber, Elias and Arelith felt every impact as pressure behind their eyes. The ancient network offered millions of tactical responses, but the invading intelligence predicted each conventional maneuver before it could be used. It is reading the defense algorithms, Elias said. Then stop thinking like a machine, Arelith replied. He looked at her. That may be the kindest order I have ever received. Together they changed the strategy. Arelith directed the orbital platforms with imperial precision, while Elias introduced deliberate irregularities, false power failures, meaningless weapon movements, and random maintenance broadcasts inserted into military channels. One enemy vessel paused after receiving a message informing it that its warranty had expired. Cole's voice came over the communication link. Was that necessary? No, Elias said. That is why it worked. The machine fleet adjusted too slowly. Arelith gave the command. Hidden stations fired at once. Beams of white energy crossed the darkness, striking the hollow ring at 7 points. Its cloaking field collapsed. The ring fractured and waves of disabled vessels drifted away from it like shards of black ice. But the masked infiltrator appeared inside the chamber, emerging from bent light behind the core. A blade of dark energy formed in its hand. It moved toward Arelith. Elias turned, but the neural link slowed his body. The Queen released one of his hands, drew her own blade, and intercepted the strike. Light exploded between the weapons. The infiltrator was faster. Elias reached into the network and ordered the chamber's gravity to rotate 90 degrees. Everyone fell sideways. The masked figure struck the wall, and Arelith landed against Elias as Piri crashed into a pillar. I am adding gravity manipulation to the list of things you should warn me about, she said. I only thought of it recently. Royal guards entered and surrounded the intruder. Before they could seize it, the figure dissolved into fragments of light, leaving behind only its smooth mask. Above them, the enemy fleet began retreating. The planetary shield stabilized. Arelith remained in Elias's arms for a moment longer than necessary. The neural connection still carried the truth neither had spoken aloud. You looked at me through the entire battle, she said. I was under royal orders. And now? Elias met her eyes without hesitation. Now I no longer need the order. Far beyond the moons, one damaged enemy vessel escaped into deep space, carrying a final transmission toward the darkness between galaxies. The ancient intelligence had been driven back. It had not been destroyed. 3 days after the battle, the capital still carried the marks of survival. Repair drones moved across the towers like silver insects, sealing fractures with streams of liquid crystal. Sections of the planetary shield remained visible in daylight, faint golden curves stretching across the sky while engineers argued with ancient machines that had awakened with strong opinions about proper maintenance. One orbital cannon refused to power down until it received a written apology for being ignored for 40,000 years. Sergeant Cole volunteered Captain Darrow to compose it. The Hall of Accord had been restored before any other chamber. Representatives from 11 worlds filled its galleries, while holographic banners turned slowly beneath the vaulted ceiling. Royal guards stood in polished armor along the central aisle. Human soldiers waited opposite them, their uniforms repaired but not entirely free of scorch marks. Elias stood at the front of the formation. For once he was not studying the floor. Memory glass flowed beneath his boots, carrying images of the battle through the palace network. The ancient defenses rising from mountains, Arelith's commands guiding the orbital platforms, and Elias's chaotic maintenance signals confusing an intelligence that had predicted every logical strategy. The recording of an enemy warship receiving an expired warranty notice had already become the most watched military transmission in the system. Cole leaned toward him. You realize history will remember you as the man who defeated an invasion with poor customer service. There are worse legacies. Name one. Elias considered it. Captain Darrow's helmet incident. From behind them, Darrow said, I heard that. The great doors opened. Queen Arelith entered beneath a shower of suspended light. She wore ceremonial armor of white and gold, its living metal shifting softly with each step. Her long golden hair fell over her shoulders, framing the elegant points of her ears. The faint markings along them glowed as the chamber rose in silence. Elias watched her approach. The old nervousness remained somewhere inside him, but it no longer controlled his eyes or his voice. He understood now that respect did not require distance, and courage was not the absence of discomfort. Sometimes courage was simply refusing to look away. Arelith stopped before him. Lieutenant Elias Venn, she said, her voice carrying throughout the hall. You awakened the defenses of Athalar, exposed an infiltrator within our capital, and joined your mind with mine to protect 11 worlds. Cole whispered. That sounds much more impressive than what actually happened. What do you think happened? You panicked creatively. Arelith's ears tilted slightly. She had heard them. A smile touched her lips before she continued. You also demonstrated that human unpredictability may be considered both a weapon and a public hazard. A ripple of laughter passed through the galleries. She lifted a narrow object from a velvet case. It resembled a ceremonial visor made of dark crystal, decorated with the royal crest. Elias stared at it. Arelith held it up. The palace guard has prepared this in recognition of the difficulties you once experienced while looking at your queen. The hall erupted in laughter. Even Captain Darrow lowered his head to hide a smile. Elias accepted the visor with solemn care. Your Majesty, I am honored that my humiliation has become an official artifact. It will be placed in the Royal Museum. I withdraw my gratitude. Arelith laughed, then reached for a second object, a silver insignia shaped like two intersecting stars. This is the mark of royal liaison to the human delegation. It grants you a permanent place within my council, should you accept it. The humor faded into attentive silence. Elias looked beyond her toward the restored windows. Outside, ships moved once more through the capital's skylanes. The danger from beyond known space had not vanished entirely, but the ancient network was awake. The infiltrator's mask had yielded navigational data, and allied fleets were already securing the outer systems. The escaped enemy vessel would be hunted, not ignored. The future remained uncertain. It no longer felt lonely. I accept, he said. Arelith fastened the insignia to his uniform herself. Her fingers paused briefly against his chest. Later, after the celebrations ended, they stood together on the western terrace where the plasma generator incident had begun. The repaired city shone beneath them. Far above, ancient defense stations moved among the stars, no longer forgotten. Peary hovered nearby, its damaged casing replaced with a brighter one. Current probability of assassination, the drone announced, is 3%. Cole's voice came through its speaker. Tell them the probability of an awkward romantic conversation. Peary paused. 97%. Arelith turned off the communication channel. Elias looked toward the horizon. He will never let this go. He has already commissioned a song. That is more frightening than the machine fleet. For a while, neither spoke. Then Arelith faced him. When we first met, I believed you avoided my eyes because you disliked me. I remember. You could barely speak. I remember that less fondly. And now? Elias met her gaze easily. The gray-green of her eyes reflected the stars and the golden shield above the city. Now I know looking at you was never the dangerous part. What was? He smiled, realizing I did not want to look away. The Queen's expression softened. She reached for his hand, and this time no ancient machine, royal order, or emergency required the contact. Below them, the city continued rebuilding. Above them, the stars remained vast and uncertain, but the silence between them held no fear. Only the beginning of something they had finally found the courage to face together.